afternoon, and welcome to our next episode of the LevelUp Cyber LinkedIn show. My name is Tony Bryan. I'm the Executive Director of CyberUp, and I'm very excited about today's guest, Emily Hemingway with TechSTL. Welcome, Emily.
Hey, Tony. Thanks for having me.
So truth be told, Emily and I know each other pretty well. I do happen to be a board member for TechSTL, the organization, which is doing incredible work, and I'm excited to share a little bit more about that for the day, but really excited about today's discussion around the recent publication of the St. Louis Tech Jobs Report and just the data that was presented in that. And I think the data side of it is such an important aspect for companies and regions to make decisions on funding and make decisions on workforce development and really just programming. So I'm excited to dive into it. But before we do any of that, I think it probably would make sense for everybody to get a chance to know you. I know you, but not everybody else does. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Emily.
Sure. So I'm a mompreneur. I'm a tech entrepreneur. Became an entrepreneur before I even knew what that meant, right? Have had a couple of different SaaS startups, so worked mostly in software development and directory systems, and eventually realized that I really liked working with the government, which is crazy. I know it's not really a place for entrepreneurs, but I love ecosystem design. So used to live in Asheville, North Carolina. I was there for about 15 years and had the opportunity to really wear a lot of the hats there in the community. So the mentor program, the venture program, I was the director of entrepreneurship and economic development, ran the accelerators, and then had the chance to move to St. Louis. So been here about 2 years and have been in the role of the founding executive director here at TechSTL for about 1.5 years. And it has been a whirlwind. Supporting tech and entrepreneurship is even more exciting than it was before the pandemic. So much cool stuff happened over the past few years that it's a really fun place to be in supporting entrepreneurship and innovation on a community level. So, and I'm lucky to have people like you, Tony, on my board. So thanks for all you do and for bringing me on here today.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
So TechSTL has done some amazing things, right? We just hit the 1 year milestone, right? And I'm always amazed, and I feel bad about myself when I see all the things that Emily does on a regular basis, right? From the 5x5 goals and just the amount of events. And in reality, is you're a one-person show with a little bit of contract support.
Mm-hmm.
You've done a lot of stuff, right? Which is impressive. And the biggest thing being, the most recent thing being the Tech Job Report. So what was the main catalyst for you, or you felt the importance of we need to dive into this data? What drove that?
Well, I mean, I think right now, jobs is the most important topic of conversation around the whole country, especially in technology. But especially so for us, we've started with, in September, we released our strategic plan, which is the 5x5. We also then put out the IT labor market report, which was really just like this table stakes of, for TechSTL, when we say tech, what do we mean by tech? What's been the history of the tech workforce? And what is the current state of the workforce? And that really showed us that we're in the St. Louis region, we're at about around 85,000 people in the tech workforce. But what we became clear was that we didn't yet have the data that was really looking at the demand in the workforce. So what is it looking like around over the past 12 months that we're able to see, not only how we've been over the past few months or few years, but also what are we looking like in the past year of how have we bounced back when it comes to open tech jobs. And so this report was really, really helpful in establishing just kind of a snapshot of what are our hiring partners looking for? What is the demand over the past year? Are we meeting that demand? But also the question of how are we supporting this pipeline, right? That's in St. Louis, we have more demand than we can meet. That right now we have around 85,000 people in the workforce. And over the past 12 months, we've had over 70,000 open jobs. Today, we have about 30,000 open jobs. that there is a huge demand for tech positions. What we're trying to also understand is how are we training that workforce? And so, an example of CyberUp, right? So how are we working with our partners to really identify what are the credentials, the certificates, the skills that are most sought after with our hiring partners, and are we teaching those things? So where would people go in order to get those credentials? Would they go to the community college, the university? Would they go to groups like CyberUp or Launch Code? So how is our community helping to really meet that demand? And so we had to start with getting that data and telling that story so that we could really start having this conversation of how are we doing around supporting the pipeline. And this helped really spur, I think, some dialogue in the community around where we have gaps, where we have barriers to access, what we're needing to fix in order to really get the right people in these right jobs as quickly as possible.
So I want to make a point of clarity here. So, a large part of your work over the first 6 to 9 months was a listening tour, right?
Yeah.
And this is for those that are tuning in, maybe in different states or different cities, and thinking, man, that sounds great. I would love a data report, and it's beyond just let's pull some stuff or scour the internet and come up some data, right? Like what I was
Yeah.
impressed with what TechSTL did is you established multiple working groups, right, in different subjects and context, and really wanted to hone in on what was important to the businesses within the St. Louis market, what was important to the hiring managers. And this was a direct kind of result of that data, right? Of like, man, we really want to know what's out there. So, let's do some research in this. If you were to look back at some of the key takeaways, what were some of the major influences or takeaways from the report?
Well, and I think that I'm glad that you pointed that out because there were a lot of pieces to this that, that we had taken a year to really have these conversations that it allowed us to explore all of the core components of the pipeline, right? So we started first with the demand, right? Of what were our hiring partners looking for the most over the past year. And that was a combination of, we did a lot of surveying with our hiring partners, as well as we were able to scrape data from Jobs EQ, which was looking at specifically at open tech jobs and how those were organized, as well as analyzing, what were the soft skills, the hard skills, the certificates, the credentials. So what specifically were in those job postings, right? So that we could really better understand and kind of organize those pieces. From there, we then looked to the other end of the spectrum of we go from demand to supply. So that was really establishing conversations and partnerships with the K through 12 schools, the higher education schools, the non-traditional adult learning partners, the nonprofit training partners, and really trying to then map across our community what these IT pathways look like, what the current state of the pipeline was. And so the data for us, there were a lot of really great findings for the St. Louis community. It really represented the fact that the tech and innovation sector in St. Louis is absolutely bouncing back even stronger than pre-pandemic. So just in the past 12 months, we've had a 33% increase in the number of job postings, and we have surpassed the number of job postings from before the pandemic. So we've not only made up ground, we are now growing faster than we were then. It also helped to be able to give us a state of the current capacity of the pipeline. So that was one question that we were looking at. So for TechSTL, we defined what we call our 5x5. So our big 5 goals. The first one is to double tech workforce, which we now know how big our current workforce is. So we know what doubling would look like. The second is diversifying tech workforce. And in the IT report, we were able to look at what is the current state of diversity. But the third was if we want to 2x the output, we estimate that we'll have to 5x the input, which means we need to scale our talent pipeline by 5 times. That data we didn't have. We didn't understand, or we haven't been able to really track what is the current state or capacity of the pipeline and what does that really look like. So out of this research, we were able to get an average across all of our partners that the pipeline is currently operating at about 65% capacity, which is pretty good because that shows that we could increase by a third, that we could have a 35% increase before we were needing significant investment. That based upon where we are right now, on average, we're just needing more bodies. We're needing more people to participate. That for the most part, our partners have the staff and the resources that they need in order to at least grow by another 30%, which was great to hear, right? Because that means that we have some room for immediate growth to get people in the pipeline. And I think that this jobs report, I think, landed at a really good time for St. Louis, and I think would be incredibly helpful for a lot of communities because it helped really steer the conversation around where is their need and where is their opportunity, and then how are we working together to get just more people in these pathways so that they can access these really high quality, resilient jobs that we have in the tech fields. So I would absolutely encourage people to take a look at the report. And all the data that we have is very easily available that we used. There were definitely some pieces that we were able to glean from the community, but I'd say about 90% of the data was either federal data, state data, or came from JobsEQ.
There are two things that I want to segue to from what you just said, but I'll start with one first, and then I'm going to throw you a wild card for the second one that we didn't talk
Great, I can't wait.
So, I mean, for context for everybody, the city of St. Louis and the region had come together a couple years prior, right, for the first time, I think, in history, and really established what a 2030, what is a forward-looking jobs plan for our community, which is great, right? There, in order to get to somewhere, you have to know where you're going or get to know what right looks like. So that was really the first step, I think, for our region and community to come together to really say, hey, we've got some real opportunity here. What could this look like and how do we do it, right? So that was, to me, this is that second step that we had this aspect of like, here's the plan, here's some data to drive it now. We'll segue into, what are some of the things that TechSTL is doing, right, to like make this tech job report actionable.
Yeah. Well, and so this absolutely was our first inaugural tech jobs report. Our goal is that at the end of the year, every year, we will have this dashboard, right, of looking at the 12 months prior. This gave us the chance to really establish kind of a benchmark of what data is either currently available or is easy to chase down. And then what do we need to start building the infrastructure to be able to do a better job of collecting that data? So luckily, we just won over the past few months. We won one of the Kauffman Foundation grants for Inclusive Ecosystem Grant, and that we're able to use those funds. We're working in partnership with Lindenwood University and the St. Louis Community College to invest in building more data collection and reporting methods to capture more data around BIPOC communities in business and technology, but also be able to drill down more specifically into some of the subsectors of technology. So that's what we saw in even this report was we were able to at least identify the top 4 pathways in technology, which were geospatial, IT, software development, and I can't remember the fourth. Cybersecurity. Sorry, Tony. My bad. But so those 4, what we were able to do was at least determine what are the strongest 4, but we know that this Kauffman grant is going to give us the ability to really build the mechanisms to capture more deeper data, because that's something that's not just out there. You can't just buy data from the government that really segments down to what does it look like in cybersecurity or geospatial or ag tech or artificial intelligence, right? Like that subsector data is something that you have to really capture in the community. And so our goal is to be able to eventually have dashboards that can really drill down into growth within each of those clusters, as well as reflect more comprehensive data that looks at specific demographics and communities. So we are really trying to scale the level of diversity in our tech workforce, not just around race and gender, but also around LGBTQ, veterans, disability, and rural communities, which means we need to build the pathways to collect the data to really know when we're making headway on that. That it's not something that we're able to capture on a detailed level on the kind of data that we can just buy. So those are things that we're really working towards as a community, because we know that that information is really important, not only in helping our organizations make decisions about how they are supporting the community, but also it's important around data transparency and accountability. That we need to know that the workforce pipeline and the community development pipeline, that they're all investing in the kinds of programs that are increasing the level of accessibility and upward mobility for the communities to access these kind of tech jobs. So those are all priorities that we have that we're hoping over the next year or two that we're able to start really able to see in the next rounds of reports, because we're able to make investments in the ability to collect that and analyze it better.
So a big part, I think, that attracted me to TechSTL, right, is the one, for those that aren't aware, we are the youngest tech council in the country, right? And the approach that TechSTL has taken has been much different than every other tech council across the country, right? Because there has been a higher emphasis and focus around diversity, equity, inclusion, which is why membership and individuals can join at a really low cost, and it's not designed to be a several $1,000 a year investment for a small business, but anywhere from $250 to $500 for a membership allows it to be accessible. In fact, we ran a kind of an end of year discount on this and really drove, I think it resulted in how many new members at the end of the year?
We tripled our membership in a month with that holiday special. Yeah.
So an important aspect, right? And I think what's exciting for me is that, although we're the newest and probably the smallest out of all of these, that the emphasis around BIPOC communities and the membership model has been something that every other tech council in the United States is like, man, we've been trying to do all of these things for the last several years. We haven't figured out. Will you keep us posted on how this works? And does it drive inclusiveness, and does it drive some of that stuff? So it's a testament to you, and I think just to the organization and just the commitment to that. So we've got a great membership base. We've now got some data that's driving some of these decisions. So then we really have to, the word that pops in my brain is activate, right? How do we activate the region around, a 2030 jobs plan that was put out, a tech jobs report that has the data behind that, and then now we're activating, businesses, communities, schools, partners to really take action. So you have a full, I get tired looking at it and exhausted just mentally thinking about all things, but we have a fairly big slate of events over the course of 2023. Do you want to share a little bit about that? And I think the part that's important in this is, yes, they are events, yes, they are activities, but what it does do is it creates an environment that invites anybody and everybody who is out there to come and participate. And yes, there are some exclusive member events and there are some non-member events, but it gives individuals an opportunity to really plug into the tech community, understand what their interest and passion may be, because there are probably a lot of people who would be listening to this that have no idea what geospatial is, right? Like geospatial is the buzz in St. Louis because we have a $1.5 billion facility going in North City, right in the heart of downtown. So it's front and center for us, but not necessarily for everybody else. So how do we engage people that don't know what this means to come out and learn things like AI, blockchain, geospatial technology? So I will stop rambling and say, what are some of the ways we intend to activate the data we have here for the report?
Sure. Well, spoken like a passionate board member. So thank you, Tony. The reality is that the power and influence of a tech council comes from a robust and diverse network of members, right? That's where we are able to really build TechSTL to be the force that it can be to really advocate on behalf of making innovation more inclusive across the region. So, our biggest goal is making it accessible to individuals and organizations across all of St. Louis, because we want them to be involved. If you are in some way tied to technology and innovation, we'd love for you to be part of this conversation. So we just launched a new partnership with Venture Cafe that TechSTL is going to have an event there every week, which is really exciting. And those are free and completely open to the public. They're every Thursday afternoon at Cortex downtown. And right now we are in full blown planning mode for Tech Week, which is the last week of April. It's April 24th through the 28th. It is going to be all the things technology and innovation. We're going to be all over the region. We'll have events for K through 12, for high schools, for universities, for nonprofits, on all of the sectors. So if you are interested in getting involved, we definitely have places for you to volunteer. And if you're interested in hosting an event, please reach out, because we are planning that out. It is going to be hot and exciting and all things St. Louis. So I would say if this is something that you're interested in, I'm more than happy to talk to you about either joining as a member, learning more about our organization. I try to make myself pretty accessible. There's more information on our website at techstl.com, or you can always email me at emily@techstl.com, and I can get you some more stuff to look at. So thanks for just giving me the platform, Tony, to talk more about what we're doing.
Yeah, I know I'm personally excited about TechSTL, the Tech Week. And we've had a lot of discussions, around the region, right? Right before I hopped on here, I was talking to a gentleman who's doing some stuff in South Carolina. So there's just like national interest, right? And I think, our friendly politicians are starting to recognize that, hey, this technology thing's not going anywhere. We probably should, make investments in jobs and economic development opportunities that exist. And I think efforts like a TechSTL and things like Tech Week bring events and activities to folks where they can engage in a way that maybe they didn't have a way to engage before. I think it makes it a very attainable, because there's not a cost associated with most of the events, so somebody can just come and participate and learn. It's been interesting, obviously, since COVID, right? Everybody where it seems like things are picking back up, in a positive way, but at the same time, oftentimes it doesn't feel like things are picking back up, right? Where like you would attend an event and there are 5 people, and sometimes you attend an event like the one we had at Object Computing, where we talked about NFTs and blockchain, right? That people came out of woodwork for that. I mean, there was 100 or so people in a pretty small space. So I think it's exciting because there's a lot of, Chat GPT and all these like kind of cool things. And that, this gives an outlet and way for people to learn and engage in a spot maybe they hadn't had an opportunity to.
Yeah. Innovation is all about hope and possibility. And that is such a good place to be right now, because I think we could all use a little bit more of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's we've all seen there's been a ton of layoffs, right, within tech jobs, right. I don't know that there's been a lot I've seen specifically around cybersecurity, which is our kind of space, but there was this huge boom during COVID, and there was remote work made talent available across the country in a much easier, much more efficient way that didn't require a huge investment for a lot of companies, and they boomed. And so I think it's a little bit of a testament of a market correction, I think, where maybe there was some overzealous hiring, but I think that dust will start to settle here in a little bit, and everybody will kind of get back on track and look at it. I know an important aspect for us is, what does this mean for hiring? What does it mean for apprenticeship programs? And in reality, I think there's really one of 2 things, right? Companies go in complete panic and shutdown mode and stop hiring altogether. I don't think that's going to be the case, or it really encourages companies to think outside the box and look at things like apprenticeship as a way to organically grow talent and really make investments into their staff. And I think they'll find, I won't bore everybody with the apprenticeship spiel today. We'll save that for another episode in a couple of weeks. But there's
it's an important part of the pipeline. right? And that's what we're
Yeah.
having to look at, is how are we have to get creative around meeting this demand, right? Because we have, even with the layoffs, we still have more open jobs than most of the cities can fill, right? And so as a community, we're all having to really look at how do we not only expand the pipeline so that we have more people, we have more diversity in that pipeline, but also that we're getting smarter about how we look at the skill development of that pipeline, that not everything requires a 4-year degree. A lot of these jobs would actually be would be easier to hit the ground running with a couple of key certificates, right? Or credentials. And so we're having to, as communities, as networks, we're having to have those conversations and really look at the non-traditional pathways that get great people into great jobs as quickly as possible. So I think that it's absolutely relevant, Tony.
Well, I imagine that, somebody who's watching or will listen to this at some point, right? They're like, this will never work in my city because there are fiefdoms and somebody wants to be in charge, right? And I would say St. Louis isn't isolated to that by any means, right? But having efforts like a TechSTL, they can truly come in as a indifference, not the right word, but a organization that can, just like they have one kind of goal in mind and they don't really care about the ego side, but can bring everybody to collectively rally around a topic. Workforce just happens to be one. There are multiple topics here, but I think it highlights the importance of having a single organization that would drive some of this stuff. For the region, and I'm tickled to be a part of it, right? Just through the board service. So we have, I don't know, 4 and some change left. Anything you want to share? Any plugs you want to give for the group?
Sure. Well, so the one thing that I would say is kind of feeding on what you just said. I think it's not even just about TechSTL as an organization. It's more about, especially when you're in a community that has fragmentation or has silos or has fiefdoms, innovation and technology is a really great bridge, because that was one of the things that came out of the pandemic, is that technology is a conversation now that has to be had in every room. That innovation is a piece that requires that people like me are at the table for everything around education to community development to business development to workforce development to government, to public policy to communications, right? That there are very few avenues in like this, especially right now, that if you're trying to really tip the scales in increasing collaboration, in breaking down some of those walls and building bridges instead, innovation is a great mechanism for doing that, because people in general in communities are recognizing that they need more investment in digital equity and in building talent pipelines that are meeting the current demand, in diversifying market access for their local businesses, right? That's one of the great opportunities for us, is that tech education is the one piece that brings us into everything from small business to high growth entrepreneurship. That now every business needs a digital footprint, which means they need an advocate to really come in and talk about these things around e-commerce and digital marketing and payment gateways. And that this is a great place to be able to show up for your community and to help really address everything from DEIA to upward mobility, because there are very few topics that I've seen in my career that give you a seat at every table. And right now, innovation and technology is that. So I would say, if that's something that you're really passionate about, lean into this space, because it's definitely opened up a lot of doors for us, and it's helping us to do kind of messy systemic change across the community, but it's wrapped in the thing that everybody wants, and everybody wants more tech jobs. So I think it's a great place to start, and to definitely take advantage of the opportunity that we have today.
I mean, every company at this point is a tech company, right?
Every single one.
Advanced manufacturing, it continues the evolution of just assembly lines of, the days of just watching something go down and squeeze a bottle have gone, right? There's a lot of machines and things that help drive some of that. I don't think you ever have the ability to take the human out, but even to small businesses, right? The importance, and we're a couple blocks. We're in the same office building, so we're a couple blocks from Square, right? Which changed names, but I don't remember what the new name is. Block, right? So
Yep.
Block,
they're one of our members.
But one of those things that advancements like Block allow small businesses to really lean into this thing and make some of it easier. So,
Absolutely.
that being said, I appreciate you joining today.
Totally.
I enjoy the discussion. I'm, love serving on the board and enjoy working with you throughout the organization. Continue to be impressed with just the amount of work you've done as an individual person. And if you really want to look at, I encourage everybody to visit the website techstl.com. There's a lot of great information, and the reports are on there. The 5x5 goals are on there, and I think it's a great. I think just a great way for individuals looking at community of just wanting to plug in and maybe create your own kind of TechSTL type of environment that you would have. So with that being said, appreciate you guys tuning in. For those that are interested, next week, this does come on a Tuesday. There was a holiday yesterday, so we showed up a little bit a day later to memorialize MLK Day. Hope everybody got out and had some time to celebrate that. But next week we'll have Debbie McLeod. Debbie runs a small business in South Carolina. They've incorporated apprenticeship in an incredible way within their business and made it really, really, really work for them. So I'm excited to have Debbie join and talk about their experience with apprenticeship. So until next time, appreciate everybody coming in, and talk to you soon.